Okay, right. So, as the title says, I'm gonna take these out because actually, hang on. There we go. When I monitor it, there's a delay on the return on the actual aux channel. So yeah, I can hear that. It's very awkward to listen to. Okay, so the question's been raised. I've been asked this. So I decided to do a video on this as well. And the question that's been raised, it's on a comment on one of the other videos, and this individual wanted to know how to use an external FX processor with the DL32, um, well, the DL series mixer. And you'll see here straight away, channel 30. You can see I've got a feed coming into channel 30. Um, but I'll walk you through what I've actually done. So I'm currently plugged into channel 1. Again, don't worry about the fact that it's kick, whatever, don't worry about that. So I'm currently plugged into channel 1. That's where this mic is plugged into. Now, what I've done on the mixer, and I know you can't see this, I was going to get a camera out and sort of video it, but there's so many cables around. I've had a few recording sessions where I've been sort of recording my guitars and so on and so forth, some keyboard, etc. So, yeah, it's quite a bit of a mess here. So I'm not going to show the video of the connection, but the external effects I'm using, and to be honest with you, this is applicable to any external FX processor. So you don't necessarily need to get this particular one or worry too much about which one I'm using. This is just a sort of general overview. So you'll be able to utilize pretty much any external FX processor. And the one I have is the Virtualizer 3D High Performance. Well, they say high performance. It's one of the Behringer ones, the Virtualizer 3D, and it's the FX2000 model, multi effects processor. And that just sits in my rack. So I've got a couple of racks, one underneath, which this one sits in, and then I've got the one above, which the DL32 sits in. But the same is the same with the 16S or the R, or you can utilize this in the same way. So essentially, what I've done here is on your external FX processor, you'll have an input and an output. Mine comes with both XLR and jack. So I've got the jack Y cable, which has the ring in the tip, which means I can utilize that if I was using jack. But I'm not going to be using jack in this instance because the DL32 doesn't have a jack input for the return slot. So I'm using the XLR input and output on the external FX processor. And what I've done is I have plugged an XLR cable into aux3. Okay, this is aux3 on my output on the DL Mackie series mixer, and then I've plugged that in to the input of the external FX processor. So aux3 into the input of the FX processor, and then I've plugged another XLR cable into the output of the external FX processor into any channel that you have here. So I've gone into channel 30, and that's where I've plugged the return. So what's happening here is my vocal will go out of aux 3 into the external FX processor, and then out of the external processor, and it'll come back. It'll pick up whatever settings or configuration I have on this external processor. It'll come back into channel 30. So you've got a situation where, and this is for some of you who probably don't understand, dry and wet signal when it comes to, but you'll obviously see it within your music production. What's happening is a dry signal is coming out of aux3 for me. It's going into the FX processor, and then within the FX processor I've set, so I can choose if I wanted to have reverb, I can choose how wet that reverb signal is, so how much boom the reverb signal can have, when it's being processed inside the FX processor, and I can choose different parameters. And what's going to happen is the FX processor is going to slap these the outcome of these parameters I've keyed in, or even if I just choose an effect which is just by default and use that by default, it's going to slap that on top of the signal that's coming in this case my voice, and then it's going to send that out of the FX processor into channel 30, and channel 30 is receiving what we call the processed signal from the FX processor. Now what this means in a nutshell is this: I can make adjustments to how wet or dry, okay, how much of the processed signal comes into the mixer by adjusting how much of channel 30 I'm going to increase, and we're going to see that in a moment. Or alternatively, I can make adjustments to how wet and dry that signal is in the actual FX processor itself. Now, whichever one works better is entirely up to what FX processor you have, what type of effect you're using, and what parameters work best for that day, that event, that venue, etc. So there isn't a sort of blanket to say, oh, put this to 45 and put this to, because that's what a lot of people want. And that's what a lot of people will do or show you in these videos. But that's not the correct way of doing it, because there are differences in, if I'm in a different room to yours, how do I know that having 43% of the Hall effect, the Hall reverb effect on this particular processor would be the equivalent of you having 43% of the same Hall effect but on a different FX processing unit? That you can't possibly tell that. And then also what room I'm in can't possibly be the same as yours, so how do you know that that's enough? So it's just simple common sense to know that you can't just say set it to 43 or set it to this, and then that'll be fine. So what you have to do is a bit of trial and error for where you are. Obviously, when gigs start up and you go to different venues every single time, if that's what you do, then you're going to have to find the right balance every single time. If you're in a venue that is installed and you use that venue all the time, like it's your church or, you know, it's a hall that you do sound in, then yeah, your trial and error will just be in the initial phases. Once you find that right balance, then you'll be happy to either choose to make your adjustments on the DL, on master fader, or you can choose to make your adjustments on the FX processor, depending on how you set it up. Okay, so that aside, I'll just recap one more time what we've done, and then we're going to move to the next phase of this. So I've gone out of aux 3 into the FX processor. Out of the FX processor, it's going to pick up the wet signal, or the process signal, back into channel 30. Now, I'm not going to be able to actually hear this unless I switch the monitoring around, which I'll do in a second. So, hang on. There we go. Right, so as I turn this up, ooh, did you hear that? So I've actually set the external processor to 100% on a Hall reverb effect. Yeah, this is very disorienting. Hang on one second. Yeah, that delay is a bit disorienting, which is why I don't use it when I'm actually doing the recordings. But I've used a Hall reverb effect on the Behringer FX processor, and I've set that to 100%. It comes default at 43, which is why you heard me using 43 earlier on. And I've set it to 100% because I wanted to hear the exaggerated version, how much I'd have to turn up channel 30 to get back, you know, the wet signal. If I hadn't set it enough, you know, we might be pushing boundaries here and there, and I didn't want to start faffing around with it whilst I'm making the actual video. Now, this is untested, like literally, because, you know, once you understand that this is how this is done, you have a general understanding. I was 100% confident that this would work first time around. I wasn't guessing, basically. It makes perfect sense. And just to let you know, I use Reason as my DAW of choice. And with Reason, you know, you get to sort of choose how you how your signal goes, what you plug in where, etc. And it just comes natural for me because I also do live sound. But anyway, this is another test we're going to do. I'm going to switch the monitoring around, and then we're going to have a listen to see the wet signal. Okay. There we go. Boom. Um, so yeah, pretty much as you can see, you've got that wet signal coming back, and it's coming back with um, the volume. Sorry, yeah, it's coming back with the volume or the how wet the signal is from the actual FX processor. I can make an adjustment within the actual processor itself to lower how wet that signal is, so it sounds a bit more natural on this end. But that will also depend on how much I'm wanting to turn this up and what sounds nice for what I need it for. So that's how to do that in a nutshell. It's not really that difficult to do. But then again, you know, if no one's ever explained this to you or shown you how to do it, then everything seems difficult. As we'll all find, there's loads of things I'm still learning. By the way, there are issues I get to where I'm pulling my hair out and thinking this is frustrating, but somebody else is like, oh, that's easy. I cracked that, 2 months ago or whatever. So that's pretty much it. I'm not gonna do much more on this video. But if there are any further questions around this, guys, just keep them coming. Whilst we're in this lockdown, etc., there's more time for me to be able to do stuff like this. And like I said, I don't get paid for this. As you can see, there are no adverts on this channel. There's nothing. This is just purely done to help out as many people as I possibly can. And yeah, just keep spreading the love, guys. Keep sharing information and well, just raise that standard, isn't it? Really? Sorry. But yeah. All right, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.